Let's continue with our muscles of the trunk and upper extremity. So we were doing the trapezius. What's trapezius mean? Trapezoid. You remember that from your geometry. So with a trapezoid, at least two sides are parallel. So they thought that's what they were seeing with the trapezius muscle. So we had the, if you recall, the occipital bone. Because this muscle is going to be on the posterior surface and superior surface. We're going to see it's going to form a trapezoid like this as it comes down. So we're going to start with the occiput, and then we have the vertebra, the cervical thoracic vertebra, and there's a ligament that runs between the spines, the ligamentum nuchae, which runs between cervical and thoracic spines. So it will be coming down here. And then we need the spine of the scapula, And now we're ready to fill in our trapezoid. So we'll have the origin will be on the occipital bone. The ligamentum nuchae, and it will come up and insert. We've got them coming. Let's do them a different color. Will be coming over this way to insert on the spine of the scapula. Insert spine of scapula. And the lateral third of what? Of the clavicle, right. So we'll have this muscle coming from here. But it's got to go around the corner to the clavicle, and I can't do that on this two-dimensional plane, so we'll just tell you. So roughly, we have our trapezoid with these being parallel, these being parallel. So now you can figure out the action. Once you know origin and insertion, then you can think of what's it going to do. So if these muscles here that are attaching to the ligamentum coming from the scapula contract, what are they doing? They're adducting the scapula. Adduct scapula. If these contract, what are they going to do? Depress the scapula. They're going to bring it down, right? So depress scapula. If these attached to the skull are going to contract, what are they going to do to the scapula? what are they going to do? These are going to contract. What are they going to do? Raise the scapula. You can figure it out, can't you? Or you don't want to think. Raise scapula. So we've adducted them, we've depressed them, we've raised them. What can it do to the head if these contract? They're going to extend the head. Because flex goes this way, extend goes this way. So they're going to extend the head. I want you to learn to work these out. Then you don't memorize charts, and then you have it, tools to work with wherever you are. The next one is the latissimus dorsi. Latissimus just means broad. Doesn't help us much, but it's going to be a broad muscle, so we'll just put broad here. And it's going to be inferior posterior. So we're going to be in the lower back. And you've learned the terms now, just inferior, posterior, if you want to be very specific. So what we'll need here will be the crest of the ilium. This is posterior. We're going to go from crest of ilium, posteriorly, sacrum, lumbar, thoracic vertebra spines, up to the humerus. So let's put our little cartoon diagram. We've got crest of ilium, got crest of ilium over here too, obviously. And the sacrum in the middle. Then we'll have our lumbar vertebra and lower thoracic. So these will be lumbar, these will be thoracic. So now we're ready for the origin of the latissimus dorsi. It's going to arise from a heavy fascia called the thoracolumbar fascia. Thoraco, for thorax, lumbar, what is fascia? Fascia is a layer of strong connective tissue. Layer of strong CT. We've had fascia as an aponeurosis. Essentially, that was a layer of thick, heavy connective tissue. Fascia is essentially the same. So we have fascia now coming up from the sacrum, from the ilium, like this. So in yellow, we've put in our thoracolumbar fascia, attached to the crest of the ilium, to the sacrum, all the lumbar spines and lower thoracic spines. So these were our lumbar, these were our thoracic, and this is all fascia. And then, it's going to attach to the latissimus dorsi. All this connective tissue then is going to blend with the latissimus dorsi muscle. This now is our latissimus dorsi. And it will come together and insert on the intertubercular groove of the humerus. Remember, between the two tubercles, intertubercular groove of humerus. So if you want to complete the drawing, you can sort of make your intertubercular groove here on your humerus and bring these over to insert there. This is the intertubercular groove, this groove between your two tubercles. And you see it clearly. Your greater tubercle, your lesser tubercle, and the intertubercular groove. So you see, this is anterior. So you've got this posterior muscle coming up, and it's going to insert into the anterior intertubercular groove. So now to figure out its functions, what's it going to do to the humerus? Elevate it or depress it? Where is it coming from? It's coming from lower back. You have all of this fascia here giving strength to lower back muscles with that connective tissue, your thoracolumbar fascia. And then coming up as muscle, coming around and into your intertubercular groove. So it's going to medial rotate the humerus. Action, medial rotate the humerus, and is it going to abduct or adduct? Adduct. And it's going to draw it down, depress. So these upper fibers can help it adduct, other ones take it down. All right, what's the next muscle? Let's take an anterior muscle, anterior superior. What's the anterior superior muscle? Pectoralis major, the chest muscle. Chest muscle is your pectoralis major. There's a pectoralis minor, but we're just giving samples of muscles here, just to let you know the basic principles and to have a foundation on which to build when you go on. So this is pectoralis major. It's chest muscle. So what bones do we have here for it? We're going to have the sternum, we're going to have the clavicle, and we're going to have the ribs. So we'd have 1, costal cartilages, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We just want 6. And now we're ready to show the pectoralis major, except we need something for it to insert on. So we're going to give us our intertubercular groove again. This is my humerus. The intertubercular groove. And we're ready for our muscles. Let's give them pink this time for something different. So we're going to have origin. Origin will be the sternum. Medial clavicle. Medial clavicle. And 2 to 6 costal cartilages. Costal cartilages. Review, review. And the insertion will be the outer lip of the intertubercular groove. Insertion, outer lip of intertubercular groove. Working our way down here. I hope that shows. Yes. So we're coming then across here. Medial clavicle, sternum, take it all over. So what's it going to do when this chest muscle contracts? Put your hand on your chest muscle and then make those fingers pretend like they're contracting. And what are they doing with the humerus when they contract? Are they abducting or adducting? Adducting, sure. Action. Adduct humerus. And since they're on the outer lip here, what are they going to do on this outer lip? When they contract, they're going to medial rotate the humerus. Bring it clear over. Play with your body. Play and see what they can do. All right? Medial rotate. All right, that gives us our pectoralis major. Now, let's move over. We've got David and Stephanie, so we can take them off. Let's take the deltoid. Most people know the deltoid. It's an easy one to figure out. Please. No, it comes around, as I showed one time. The next time I was just going fast. It comes around from, so when it rotates, medial rotate. That's correct. So let's get the deltoid. What did we say it meant? Do you remember very first time we talked about shape? Yeah, a delta, Greek D, deltoid. So it's going to give the shape to the shoulder. Shape to shoulder. All right, where is it going to originate? If it's giving shape to shoulder, just place your hand up here. It's going to be lateral clavicle. and the spine of the scapula, right? Lateral clavicle. And spine of scapula. And where is it going to insert? A deltoid tuberosity on the shaft of the humerus, because it's coming over. If you put your hand here, it's going to be the apex down here. So it's going to insert on the deltoid tuberosity on the humerus. So, when you contract your fingers, you've got them placing as imitating a deltoid. What's it going to do to the humerus? Abduct. Yeah, it's going to pull it up. Abduct. It also will assist the biceps and the triceps. Assists biceps and triceps, which are coming from the scapula to the humerus too. So it doesn't only work alone. Now we can move on down and look at take the rotator cuffs next. How many have torn rotator cuffs? Nobody in this whole group? 2 of us. 3 of us. That's all? 4. So let's see what a rotator cuff is. It would be interesting to talk to a geriatric group and ask these questions and see the proportion who raise their hands. So if you learn these early and learn to take care of them, then you won't fall and do all these things. So we're doing rotator cuffs. And these will all be going from the scapula to the humerus. From scapula to humerus. And I'll give them to you because you've already had all the parts of the bones involved. So we're going to have the scapula, spine, acromion, glenoid fossa, and down. So, who can tell me what we called this area superior to the spine? Supraspinous fossa. So it's a supraspinous muscle. Then we had below the spine the infraspinous. So we have the infraspinous muscle. Just so you've been introduced to rotator cuffs, because their tears are very frequent later. And then these were supraspinous, infraspinous, and what do we call the one on the anterior side of the scapula? Subscapularis. So we have a subscapularis, but I've got to do 3 and make it curve around to the other side. So it's going to be subscapularis. And then we have one more, that's going to be coming from down on this lower aspect. Does anybody know that one? Those who take your physical education usually know your rotator cuffs well. Teres minor, correct. The teres minor. So these collectively, so just that you get the idea, the whole scapula is sending its information to the humerus out here. Going up, over. And so the insertion, these are all origins. Insertion will be the proximal humerus. I'm not going to give you the detail. But since there are many of them, they will adduct, they'll abduct humerus. They'll medial and lateral rotate. So did you have surgery? Did anybody, somebody said they had, where were they? I saw a hand. No? All right. You did? No, nobody. All right. Anyhow, you can have surgery and have these sewn back on because they do tear very easily later on when you fall. All right, deltoid, rotator cuffs, what's next? Let's go directly then to the arm and forearm. All you have to do is use your arm and appreciate how many muscles it takes to just erase a board. This is arm and forearm. Arm muscles are designed for what? If you had your choice, for strength or dexterity? Strength, sure. Arm designed for strength. And forearm for dexterity. So let's take some arm muscles. Those you've already heard of. Biceps and triceps. Biceps, as we said, 2 heads. And both of these heads are going to be on the scapula. Had you ever heard of your scapula before, class? Ever thought about it? How much of a role it plays for you to do everything? You toss your ball, you do anything. And all these muscles are attached to your scapula. So you'll be able to draw it in your sleep. Do you dream about your muscles? What do you dream about? Not going to tell me. All right, this is our scapula. We want to put in our, this is the posterior view. We have a coracoid process that I'm accentuating here, but you've seen it. It's hard to see because this is my spine, my acromion, and this coracoid process sneaks in under my scapula. But I can't put it in that way, so I put it up above. So what we could do is do something like this so you'd see that it's really behind. So this is coracoid process. And this is our glenoid fossa. So we have two heads to our biceps now. We have a short head and a long head. The short head will come from our coracoid process. And our long head from the superior lip of the glenoid fossa. Glenoid fossa. I mean, you always think this is so much, but all I have to do is run into my students over at UCSF in the elevator, and they say, we never realized how much anatomy really is. Right? They thought this was a lot. I'm just telling you that so that you release the stress. It's not a lot compared to what you're in for. All right, so we have our two heads, our long and our short. And they're going to insert on the radial tuberosity. Where is that? Here's our radius, lateral here. See that bump? That's where it's going to insert. So they're coming down from, here's my coracoid process, here's my glenoid fossa, can't see it too well from front, down here. So what's going to be a function when that muscle contracts? Here, this radial tuberosity is on the medial surface of the radius. So if it's going to contract, it's going to bring the hand into a supinated position. So it's a powerful supinator. The biceps function as a powerful supinator. And the function that you all know. What's its other function? Flex the forearm, sure, show your biceps. You know, when you're teaching in Australia to kids, when you ask them to show their masculinity, little kids here, you ask them to show, they show you your biceps. Little kids there show you your abdominal muscles because they get beer bellies. And that's supposed to be masculinity. Difference in cultures. So powerful supinator and its flexor. All right, so that's our biceps. What about our triceps? Three heads. We'll summarize those so it's not too much for you. Three heads. One head will be on the scapula, two on the humerus. Got to be distal or proximal if it's originating. Sure, proximal. Thinking. Learn to think. Do you think you have two centers, one for memorization and one to think? All right. So where on the scapula? This, our one on the scapula, will be on the infraglenoid tubercle, which would just sit about here. the origin, infraglenoid tubercle. And the other head, two of them will be, as I said, on the proximal. We'll just put it proximal humerus. So we've got our humerus here. And the others will be coming from here. Actually, they're coming from medial, lateral, posterior, to show what kind of action we can get. Now, where is it going to insert? Our humerus is coming down. It's going to articulate with two bones here. Where is our triceps going to insert? Do you remember the name? Right. Which bone is medial in the forearm? Everybody knows that, right? Which is it? You did? Thank you. So this is going to be the olecranon process. Olecranon process of ulna. So that's where our triceps will be coming. Olecranon process of ulna. And the action then, coming in here, what's it going to do? It contracts. It's going to extend the forearm, opposite from your biceps. Extend forearm. Can't you feel your olecranon process? I mean, the radius has the head, so that's very easy to remember and allows this to rotate. So it's going to be dealing with muscles that supinate and rotate. But now, if we get the posterior side of our ulna, we have this big olecranon process, which allows us to extend, because the muscle's on the posterior surface of the arm. But it will also stabilize that joint. You know, if you want to use this as a rod and not flux it, really get a powerful, all these muscles up here. So it stabilizes the joint, stabilizes elbow joint. That's not so good. All right, that gets us through our triceps. We mentioned the brachioradialis. Do you remember that? By just its name, you know where it's going, where it's coming from. Where is it coming from? The humerus. Where is it going? Radius. Again, to be able to put them together, brachioradialis. How many play tennis? How many are right-handed? And which is your brachioradialis larger on, your right forearm or your left forearm? Put them out and look at them. You see the difference? See how big that gets when you use only one muscle there? That's the lateral shape of the forearm, is your brachioradialis. Make them fun. Make them work. Don't just memorize. So brachioradialis is your lateral forearm. Gives the shape to lateral forearm. Brachioradialis shape, lateral forearm. So then let's go to the forearm. We're going to just collectively say the forearm. On the anterior surface of the forearm, we have flexors. On the posterior surface, we have extensors. They all have specific names, but we're not going to give them to you. All right? So forearm muscles, anterior flexors. Flexors of wrist and fingers. Posterior extensors of fingers, yes, extending, flexing. All right, that will take care of forearm. And let's then go to which ones? Do you want your abdominal muscles? Do we have time to get started? Muscles of the abdominal wall. Oh, I'd like to mention your thenar eminence before we do, because it's a muscle in the palm at the base of your thumb. Do you see a big swelling? Base of your thumb down here? That's your thenar eminence. Has anybody ever run a condenser tube through your thenar eminence? I have. Right, when I first learned. All right, thenar eminence, base of thumb. Just one big muscle. Base of thumb. Because you may be curious, you look at your hand and see only at the thumb do you have a great big mass like that. So the function of the thumb itself is a lecture. All right, now, abdominal muscles. Why do you have all these abdominal muscles? What are they doing for you? Abdominal muscles. Well, they're going to protect and they're going to support your abdominal and pelvic viscera. So you need all these muscles. You've got all these abdominal viscera. You've got your spleen and you've got your pancreas and your liver. We've got to support them. Down here we have to support our pelvic viscera. So functions. Support and protect abdominal and pelvic viscera. Thank you. What else do they do? If they're going to contract, they're all on the anterior side of your body, and they're going to contract. Sure, what are they doing? Flexing the spine, right? The vertebral column. All right, very important function. Flex vertebral column. So the next lecture we'll see how they're supported. You have a lot of heavy connective tissue, because when the female is pregnant, she gets her abdominal muscles out here. She needs a lot of supportive connective tissue. Let's look at our slides. So we'll see how they're arranged with muscles and support, right? My daughter-in-law had twins, you know. Wow, so glad she's supporting.
Get your pointer?
I've got my pointer. I'm all set. First slide, please. Is there a slide? We've got it. Here we go. All right, let's just take the few we've had. Here's your sternum. Here's your clavicle. What muscle's this? Pectoralis major. What muscle's this? Deltoid. What muscle's this? Biceps complete. Biceps femoris? No. Biceps what? Brachii, sure. We're going to see biceps femoris down here. We just did brachioradialis coming out here. We're going to see the external oblique next time, the transverse, the rectus abdominis here, how it differs in the lower part of the abdominal wall versus the upper part. Let's see, we have triceps here on the posterior surface coming to the olecranon process. All the muscles of the forearm on this side would be flexors, they're flexing. Extensors on the other side. Trapezius came over the corner here to come on to the clavicle. Lateral clavicle. Trapezius. What's this one coming from the sternum and clavicle going to the mastoid process? Sternocleidomastoid. Next one. And this shows the abdominal muscles. I'm sorry we didn't get there, but it shows the pectoralis major very well from medial clavicle, sternum, 2 to 6 costal cartilages coming over to the intertubercular groove in the humerus. Here's the deltoid coming from the lateral clavicle, coming down to the deltoid tuberosity on the humerus. This is all the connective tissue supporting your abdominal wall. But you had the same on the back. You had the thoracolumbar heavy connective tissue. In the next one, we need that support because we're upright. Well, I guess these are ones that I get to next time with the abdominal muscles. Let's keep going. I'm just going to go through them fast. I'm not going to give detail. Next slide. This was just showing again the deltoid, but how important it'll be when you see all the vessels and nerves that are underneath. In the next one, and this now is our trapezius. We had the occipital origin down the ligamentum nuchae in the spine of the vertebra, the cervical, thoracic, coming over to insert some of it on the lateral clavicle, scapula. Here we have the portion coming from the thoracic vertebra, coming up to insert. What big muscle is this coming in to insert on the humerus? Latissimus dorsi. What muscle is this? Deltoid. Easy because of its shape. Next one. What one's this? What one's this? Trapezius coming around the corner. What one's this? Deltoid. What one's this? Terrific. You've really got it. Next one. And then this is what we could have done to you for your forearm. Isn't that amazing? All those tendons, all those bellies of muscles. All right, next one. It's just another one to give you an example of how much more we could have given you. What is this one? This is triceps coming down to the olecranon process. Next one. And this is what you really have to know, because when you become a practitioner, you have to know what's beneath the surface. So if I ask you what muscles here? Pectoralis major. What muscles here? Deltoid. What muscles here? Triceps. Good for you. So these are easy, but it gives you an idea of what our goal is, to recognize from the surface what lies beneath. So I think that's it.